Hey guys, tonight we're heading into a dusty, suspicious heat wave where your clean shirt is more dangerous than a loaded pistol, and smiling at the wrong horse can get you buried behind a saloon. The Wild West isn't about cowboy hats, it's about hoping you don't get dysentery before noon. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for a gentle hum, and let's head out tonight. You step out of the wagon and immediately regret it all. The heat hits you first. Not like a warm summer breeze, but like someone's burned the air and decided to add some sand. You squint through the sunlight, your eyes watering. Not from emotion, but because some part of the desert has just touched your cornea. This is your grand entrance, and it's embarrassing enough. The town in front of you has no name you've ever heard before. Maybe Dead Mule Junction, maybe Cactus Bluff, maybe it's just a place where people disappear. You try to breathe confidently, but all you get is dust and the faint scent of old whiskey and fresh sweat. You look down at your feet. Your boots are new, too new. They squeak as you walk, a faint cry for help. Your shirt is pressed and tucked in. Your belt is polished. Your hat is still white. You're almost a living invitation to be mugged, robbed, or laughed out of town, or worse, mistaken for a tax collector. Someone walks by, a hunchback with a face like dried meat and eyes like someone who's seen things crawl out of sand, and asks questions. He doesn't say hello. He spits. It lands inches from your feet. You take it as a greeting. The tavern is the busiest building on the only dirt road that qualifies as a main street. Its front door rattles as if it's been through too many fights. You push it open, and each creak screams stranger. Conversation stops. The piano strikes a low note. Someone coughs, long and slow, as if punctuating a sentence. You try to pretend this is normal, but it's not. You walk to the bar and sit down almost confidently. The bartender doesn't ask what you want. He asks, "You lost?" It's not a question. It's a diagnosis. You mumble something about just arriving. He nods, pours a glass of liquor that smells like shoe polish and regret, and hands it to you without another word. You pretend to take a sip. Your tongue retracts. Behind you, two men are arguing about who cheated at Faro, a card game you've never heard of. A third man is sleeping against a beam, holding a chicken, maybe his best friend. Maybe dinner, maybe both. You consider asking for a room, but you also think about how the man sweeping the floor just dropped a severed finger and calmly kicked it under the table. You decide to wait. Outside, the wind howls again. A dog barks at nothing, or maybe it's something you can't see. Either way, it feels like a sign. You decide to stretch your legs. Mistake. You step outside and almost trip over a dead scorpion, probably a welcome gift. A boy about 10 leans against the gutter and stares at you like you owe him money. He says nothing, just chews on something too tough to be food. You wave, he spits. It's a local dialect. The sun hasn't set yet, but you're already sweating through your shirt. You feel watched, not by anyone, but by the town itself. It's as if the buildings are whispering, he won't last until Friday. And the worst part, maybe they're right. You walk into the grocery store. The bell above the door rings like it's wailing. Inside, shelves of mysterious tin cans, boots designed to walk through fire, and a rifle that looks like it's seen more use than words. An old woman behind the counter looks at you. "Are you a minister?" she asks. "No," you say. "Too bad, our family just died again." You think about what that means, then decide not to think about it. Outside, the wind picks up again. The door to the tavern swings open. A man stumbles out, blood on his lips and giggling. He looks at you, winks, and keeps walking as if nothing happened. No one follows, no one helps, no one cares. You realize something: there's no safety net out there. No one's coming to save you. Your past doesn't matter. Your future is a gamble. And your present, well, that depends on whether you can stop looking like lunch. You take off your hat, dust it off, then tilt it back because apparently that's how a guy called Snakebite Pete wears his hat. That's a start. Your shoes are still squeaking. So before you go looking for your next bad decision, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel, but only if you really like what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. You walk 2 steps down the street and someone mistakes you for a banker, a preacher, or the mayor's nephew. None of these roles are good for your longevity. Here, clothes are not just a style, they're a survival strategy. Your shirt is still tucked in. That's mistake number 1. In the Wild West, tucking anything into your pants is either arrogant or stupid, maybe both. You quickly take it off, hoping no one will see. But then someone does. A woman with pigtails and one eye squints. then turns away as if she's writing your obituary. You pass a man whose fur looks like it was once part of a bear. Now it smells mostly of dirt and regret. He smells of old tobacco and something else unidentifiable, something wild. That's mistake number 2. You smell of soap, like someone who still cares about how they smell. That alone is enough to get you challenged to a duel. You duck into the stables to regroup. The air is thick with the smell of horses and something that used to be hay but is now closer to compost. You inhale deeply. This is the smell of fitting in. The stable keeper looks at you. Is that your cologne, he asks. You nod. New brand, don't shoot. You start to assess the local fashions. There's a system here, a logic written in dust and blood and sunlight. Everyone's clothes look like they've been through 2 wars and a bar fight. You see a man with a patch on his jacket that says, "I'm not sorry." You wonder if that's his name or his legal defense. Rule 1, your clothes should look like they've been through something. If they don't, neither do you. Rule 2, stains are status symbols. Grease you worked, blood you fought, unrecognizable slime you lived, clean cloth is a lie, and here lies will kill you. You rub some mud, hopefully mud, on your sleeve. You rub your boots against the bucket. You take off your hat and drag it on the ground like a dog hiding a secret. Then you put it back on at a playful angle. Not fashionable, just a little off. You're learning. A man walks by, nods at your newly soiled look, and mumbles, "That's better." That's the best compliment you can get here. Now, let's talk about colors. If you're wearing anything lighter than a sunny beige, you're asking for trouble. Yellow means you want to be noticed. Blue means you've never been in a sandstorm. Red means you want to fight. And green means you're an optimist, perhaps the most dangerous thing in the Wild West. Stick to the classics: gray, brown, dust. Anything that blends with dirt or looks like it used to be dirt is acceptable. Bonus points if it blends with a dead mule or a whiskey stain. You see a man shining shoes. Not cleaning, just sorting out the dirt. You try to imitate him. Using a rag you find on the street, it smells like a bad decision. Perfect. Then there's the matter of accessories. Every serious local has something hanging around, dangling or rusting. A scarf that doubles as a filter, a belt buckle big enough to deflect bullets, or a pouch that holds something no one talks about. You find a piece of rope and tie it to your arm. No reason. It just feels right. You pass a mirror nailed to the outside of a barber shop. You stop. You look. You're no longer polished. You're no longer a living statement of poor judgment. You look tired, dusty, confused, genuine. A small child walks by and says, "You look like you've been punched." You smile. It's almost a compliment. You keep walking, more confident now. You're starting to understand. Until you make your 3rd mistake, you whistle. Whistling is a complicated thing in the Wild West. It can mean you're planning something. It can mean you're warning your comrades, or it can simply mean you're too happy. And happiness is suspicious. A man turns his head on the street. A woman drops her clothes. Somewhere, a dog growls. You stop short, too late. A man approaches, tall, big, hat covering most of his face. He looks at you and says, "What's that tune? Stranger?" You blink. "It's just a song," you mumble. "The one that gets people shot," he says, and walks away. You make a mental note: never whistle, never hum, never tap your foot. Rhythm is for churches and gunfights. You're not ready for either. As you pass the prison, you see a poster nailed to the wall. "Wanted, anyone wearing a white shirt," in smaller print underneath. Just kidding, unless... You pull down your collar. A man standing nearby grins and says, "First time in the West." You nod. "Don't worry," he adds. "You'll fit in when the desert starts to take over." You don't know what that means, but it sounds right. Just as you turn the corner, a gust of wind picks up, whipping your face with grit. Tears stream down your face, your mouth fills with dust, and your hat flies off. You chase after it. It lands in a woman's boot. She picks it up, examines it, and returns it with a warning smile. "You're not from here," he says. You nod. He walks away. The hat is heavy now, heavy with understanding. Welcome to the Wild West. You learn fast, mostly because your alternatives are starting to blur. Your 2nd hour in town, and your brain has begun to rewrite the basic rules of conversation. First things first. Say less, a lot less, in the Wild West. Every word is a coin you might have to duel, and if you say too much, someone will want to change it. You put this theory to the test at the saloon, walking up to the bar and nodding. The bartender grunted. You grunted back. A drink appeared. No name, no question, no sudden movement. It was a beautiful system. You glanced to your left. A man with a mustache that could feed a flock of sparrows was staring into his drink as if it were whispering state secrets. You tried a friendly evening. He turned, looked you up and down, and said nothing. You get the idea. He hasn't spoken since the Civil War, and he's not going to start talking now just because you want to talk. Laughter breaks out at a corner table, but it dies down just as quickly. A man leans back, still smiling, but his eyes are blank. He's waiting for someone to say something wrong, just one word. Then he'll reach under the table and grab something wrapped in that tarp. You suddenly remember no one has ever been shot for being silent. Outside, two cowboys stand on the porch, silent. One is chewing tobacco, the other is spitting. They've probably been standing there for 20 minutes. It's a form of communication so advanced that even linguists are baffled. Try it. You lean against a pillar, nod once, and say nothing. A third man walks in. No one says anything. They're not friends. You are not enemies. You are neutral observers in a world where language is a trap. Finally, someone down the street shouts, "What did you just say about my horse?" A gunshot rings out. The group jumps, then resumes chewing, spitting, and breathing in silence. The man next to you says, "Amateur." It's the first word you've heard in 10 minutes, and it carries more judgment than a courtroom. Back at the grocery store, you see a stranger chatting. You brace yourself for impact. He's wearing a bow tie. He's asking about local cheese. He's dead meat. The clerk nods politely but holds his broom like a club. You back away slowly in case the conversation about cheese gets heated. You find a bench and sit down, watching. The town operates in such silence that the librarian cries. Every sound is measured: a cough, a clang, a footstep. Too much talking here is like blood flowing to the sea. It attracts attention, and attention deadly. There's a story you overhear, but only in fragments. A guy named Lou used to lie to get into trouble. He told people he was a gunman, said he could shoot 6 targets blindfolded, said he could take out 3 people before they drew their guns. He talked too much. Now he's just a pair of boots nailed to a fence post outside town. You start thinking of new ways to answer the question. Maybe. Hard to say. Or just not. Even compliments are dangerous. That horse is beautiful can get you thanked, or it can get you shot. Depends on the horse. Depends on the day. Depends on how long ago that horse kicked someone. You remember what the minister said earlier, the last man died? Again. Maybe it wasn't from illness. Maybe he preached longer than 10 words. Maybe he smiled too much. You test a hypothesis with the piano player. He's wiping the keys with a rag that looks older than you. You approach cautiously and ask, "Been here long?" He pauses, turns, squints. "Long enough," he says, then he goes back to wiping. Perfect. You've found the rhythm. There is a poetic pattern here, but the stanzas are short and the lines end in silence. The problem is not grammar. The problem is timing. Say too much, and you are bragging. Say too little, and you are hiding something. Say just enough, and maybe, just maybe, and you will survive until morning. That evening, you return to the bar. A man beside you mumbles something about the weather. You respond with a grunt. He grunts back. You clink glasses. You have just formed perhaps the strongest friendship of your life. No names, no stories, no lies. Just coexistence through the bare minimum of words. You hear someone say, "He talks too much." You don't turn around. You don't ask who. That sentence alone is a trial, a verdict, and a complete execution. Historians still debate whether the Western Code was ever written. Some say it lives on in action, in handshakes and silences, passed down like a campfire tale that no one dares to add to. Others say it never existed, that chaos is the code and silence is fear. You're not here to argue. You're here to survive. So you drain your glass, tip your hat in a vague salute, and step out into the crisp night air. You're not sure what kind of impression you've made. And no one's following you with a gun. That's enough. The first thing you learn about horses here is they are respected more than people. Maybe because they don't lie, maybe because they don't talk much, or maybe they just kick so much harder. You see a horse tied up outside a saloon. It's huge, dappled gray, with eyes that look like it knows how the world will end. You think about petting it. The thought almost kills you. A voice behind you says, "I wouldn't." You freeze. Unless you're married to it, or thinking about it. You slowly pull your hand away. nod, and back away as if the horse were rigged with explosives, which, honestly, is probably safer than touching something a man rides more than he sleeps. In the Wild West, horses are more than just transportation. It's an extension of your soul, your survival, and your bank account. Shave a man's saddle and he'll erase you from existence. Look at his horse too long and he might think you're going to steal it or worse. Compliment it. There's a hierarchy here, and you don't take it seriously. Near the bottom of the list are the novices, then the vagrants, then the guys who owe people money, then the stray dogs, then above that, a man's horse, and above that, his gun. You walk through town and notice all the tethered animals watching you. Or maybe it's just the horsemen looking out the windows, daring you to take a chance. One tug at the saddle horn and you're on trial, no jury, just a verdict. In the grocery store, you see reins displayed like fine jewelry, and a sign above the counter reads, "If you touch it, you better own it, or run faster than the person who touched it." You ask the clerk about buying a horse. He looks you up and down as if assessing your longevity. You know how to ride a horse. You hesitate. I've ridden one before. Does it move? Not for a while. He grumbles. Then you need a patient horse, or a priest. You nod. But the truth is, you've always thought of horses as being elegant, noble, friendly. That illusion lasts until the clerk introduces you to Grit Bucket. Grit Bucket is not elegant. It's big. Its eyes are fierce, and its mane looks like it fought a cactus and lost. It sniffs as if it's just assessed your blood. You reach out, slowly and steadily, whispering meaningless words of comfort. It bites off your hat, not gently. The clerk laughs. It likes you. You don't believe him. But you need a horse, not just to ride, but to keep from dying on foot, so you try again. Slower this time, less talk. You hold out an apple. Grit Bucket eats it, along with a portion of your glove. You don't flinch. It feels like progress. As you mount incorrectly, the salesman says, remember that animal knows everything. Storms, snakes, ambushes, listen to it. It will warn you. You nod. What if it runs? Then run faster. As it turns out, riding a horse is less like galloping across the prairie and more like sitting on a hairy earthquake. You bounce, jerk, sway, and after 15 minutes, your bones seem to want to give up their job of supporting you. Grit Bucket suddenly stops and refuses to move. You nudge, it ignores you. You plead, it snorts. Then, from a distant ridge, you hear a strange clicking sound. Grit Bucket's ears twitch. It turns away without your permission and starts walking in the other direction. That's when you realize it's smarter than you. You set up camp that night. Grit Bucket doesn't sleep near you. He doesn't trust you. That's right, you don't trust yourself either. You spread out your blanket. He stands on your water jug. You stay silent. This is his land now. The next morning, he's gone. You panic. Maybe you tied him up wrong. Maybe he escaped. Maybe he joined a herd of wild horses reading a trail map. Then you hear him snorting behind a rock. He's spying, watching, sizing you up. You whisper thank you. He sneezes. You think it's a blessing. Back in town, you meet a man named Elias, who claims his horse once saved his life by headbutting a rattlesnake. You believe him. The snake probably died of shame. Elias introduces his horse with reverence. Her name is Mabel. She's the best wife I ever had. You don't laugh. That's rude and dangerous. Then you're told about a man who stole someone's horse. They found its pieces scattered from here to the canyon. Not because the law cared, but because the horse's owner cared, and so did his friends. That's the real justice system revenge, done politely. Historians still debate whether the bond between the cowboy and his horse is myth or reality. Was it exaggerated in cheap novels and romantic paintings, or was it survival born of dust, distance, and desperate hope? You don't know. All you know is that if Grit Bucket ever leaves you, you'll probably die within 3 miles, or sooner if the sun's out. So you feed it, talk to it, find out what's on its mind. When it wags its tail twice, it's upset. When it stomps its feet 3 times, there's a snake. When it farts and walks away, you said something stupid. You accept this. You're no longer a horse person. You're a horse person. You ride into a new town. Well, riding is generous. Grit Bucket mostly pulls you along at the pace of a cranky goat. Your legs feel like jelly. Your ass starts making protest songs. But the sun is setting, and you need a place to sleep, not just somewhere without ants. The town is called Perdition Ridge. That's warning sign number 1. You've learned that any town with a name like Perdition, Dry Gulch, or Widow's Creek basically means go in, bury yourself, You pass a sign at the edge of town. It has 6 bullet holes and something carved into the wood. Turn around. Beneath it, really. You go in anyway. The first building you see is a saloon, of course. Every town has one, as do churches, outdoor toilets, and people called buckshots. The second building is a jail, and there's a man outside nailing a sign to the door that reads, "Sheriff out, probably dead." You dismount, taking longer than you'd like. Your spine tingles with complaint. You lead Gritbucket to a water trough, only to find it filled with what might have been soup. He sniffs and backs away. So do you. You walk down the street, and people look at you. It's not like the first town, where suspicion hung in the air like gunpowder. This is different. This town is too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're holding your breath. You nod at a man in a rocking chair. He doesn't nod back. He doesn't even sway. He just blinks. Once. Slowly. You walk 2 more buildings before deciding this isn't your town. But it's getting dark, and you need a place to rest. A woman selling beans waves at you. She's missing 2 teeth and has a smile that makes you check for hidden knives. "Passing by?" she asks. You nod. "You should keep going," she says. "Is the town that bad?" She shrugs. "Not bad, just unlucky." You don't ask what that means. Instead, you consider your options. There's an inn with a single window hanging from a nail, a church with more bats than windows, and a hotel that, according to its sign, offers clean beds and sometimes doors. You choose the hotel. You're feeling optimistic or reckless. Maybe both. Inside, the clerk greets you with, "We charge double if you spill blood on the sheets." You hand him a coin. He doesn't ask your name, just gives you a key that sticks. You don't ask why. Your room has a bed. Technically, yes. Same chair, same window that doesn't open, and wallpaper that has seen a lot. The bed creaks like it's made of bones and apologies. You sit down carefully. Outside, a piano plays, then stops, then starts, then stops again. You see the pattern now. It's not music. It's a warning. You look out the window and see 2 men arguing about something. Then they stop arguing. Then one of them lies still. No one screams. No one runs. Someone laughs. You go back to bed and put your boots under your pillow. Not because you love them, but because you might need to run. Historians still argue about what made a frontier town thriving. Was it trade law enforcement, a train station, or just people too tired to kill each other? You think the real answer is a town isn't about what it has, it's about what it lacks. You look for signs of life. Are the shops open after dusk? Are the lanterns lit? Is there someone named Deputy who's more than just a bottle of wine and a badge? If not, pack your bags. Some towns are waiting to fall. Others have already fallen and no one has told them yet. The next morning, you wake up at sunrise to hear a scuffle in the alley. Someone yells about cheating on breakfast. You check your saddlebags. Nothing, except for the water bottle. Gritbucket looks at you like, "That's your fault." You decide to leave. But before you leave, you ask an old man on the porch, "How do you know a town is bad?" He points to the sky. Vultures. You look up. They're circling. Then he adds, "And whether people look you in the eye or your gun hand." You thank him. He spits. Gritbucket is turned toward the road. He knows. He always does. You mount your horse, glance over your shoulder, and let the town shrink behind you. Another bad gamble avoided. Another ghost town with a heartbeat too slow to trust. On the way, you pass another town sign. It reads, "Welcome to Harmony." Beneath it, "We don't shoot strangers. Never." You consider stopping. Then you remember quiet towns aren't always safe, they're just better at masking the noise. You've slept in some questionable places in your life. A barn in Nebraska with a snoring goat. A stagecoach with 2 gamblers using you as an elbow rest. Once, under a stagecoach in a hailstorm because someone convinced you it was just a big rainstorm. But none of that prepares you for sleeping in the Wild West. Because here, sleep isn't rest, it's a temporary loss of vigilance. The options, let's go through them. Option 1, the saloon floor. It's sticky. Not just spilled drink sticky. But why is my shoe stuck to this board sticky? The scent is a mix of spilled whiskey, crushed cigarette butts, and something that might have been food, maybe human. If you're lucky, there's a spot behind the piano, quite dark and just a little haunted. You might have to sleep with an unconscious person, or several. One might be dead, or pretending to be dead. Either way, they snore like muskets. Option 2, a motel bed. Sounds civilized. Huh. Four walls, maybe a roof, or a closed door. But the door here usually refers to a curtain made of flour sacks. The mattress is dimpled in a way that suggests it's hiding something, a secret, maybe springs. You try to lock the door. The doorknob falls off. You try to wedge a chair under it. The chair crumbles like it's made of biscuits. Finally, you push your saddlebags against the door and sleep with your boots on. You close your eyes, and then someone in the next room starts snoring in Morse code, or maybe summoning something. Every noise, creak, or whisper could be someone checking to see if you've gotten enough sleep. Option 3, camping under the stars. Romantic? Sure. If your idea of romance involves coyotes, spiders the size of apples, and temperatures that go from oven to fridge in 20 minutes, you pick a spot just outside town. Flat ground, a few rocks for a fire, you spread out your blanket, look up at the sky, and immediately feel something watching you. You're not wrong. There's a rustling in the bushes. Maybe a rabbit. Maybe a drunken bandit thinking you're a bush. You're not sleeping. You're floating, horizontal. Grit Bucket lies nearby. It's not sleeping either. The horses here know better. They rest in shifts, ears twitching, ready to bolt or bite. Historians still debate whether frontiersmen ever got any rest. With dangers lurking in every shadow and walls built of hope and termites, was sleep a luxury, or was it more of a gamble? It is said that some cowboys trained themselves to sleep sitting up, eyes half closed, with a pistol in one hand and a boot in the other. Try it. You almost gouge yourself in the eye and fall off a log. Finally, you fall asleep. Not a dream, a silence. Then, click. You wake up, knife in hand. Tim dances an Irish jig. Grit Bucket snorts. He hears it too. You wait. Silence. Then, scratch. Something slithers, or wriggles, or creeps with evil intent. You don't move, because the first movement is usually the last. You pretend to be a cactus, a tense cactus. The sound fades, or fades. You tell yourself it's nothing. It's a lie, but lies are like thin blankets out there. Thin, rough, but just enough to get you through the night. When dawn comes, the sun burns your eyelids. Your face is dry, your throat is full of sand, and something hairy crawled into your boot at some point and is either dead or has had a baby. You don't check, you just shake your head and pray. You make coffee. Not for fun, nobody likes cowboy coffee. It's hot, bitter, and a little gritty and watery, but it keeps you awake. It also keeps bugs away, and maybe paint stripper. You take small sips, eyes on the horizon. You've survived the night, barely. That's worth celebrating, quietly. Because sleep isn't sacred here, it's just risky. You've listened to stories. Men who slept so soundly they woke up without shoes, or horses, or internal organs. One man woke up to find himself married. Another woke up to find himself hanged by mistake. So you learn to sleep lightly. One eye open, knife within reach, no facing out, no sleeping near a window, and never ever check in until the last person has volunteered to check out. You adapt. You begin to hear better, feel footsteps, read the wind. You sleep fitfully 20 minutes under the tarp, 10 minutes against the Grit Bucket, blinking too long behind a bale of hay. It's not healthy, but it's survival. In town, you meet a man named River Joe. He hasn't slept more than 2 hours in 15 years. He says sleep is for people who have nothing to lose. You ask him what he's protecting. He says, my boots, my mule, my life, in that order. You nod. It makes sense. So that night, you try something new. You dig a shallow trench. You lie there like a lizard. You pile some tumbleweed on top and sleep like the dead silent, invisible, unattractive. A scorpion crawls across your chest. You let it. It doesn't sting. Now you've made a tacit agreement. When you wake up, the sun is shining. Your back is sore, but you're still alive. In the Wild West, it's the closest thing to rest you can get. You're almost awake. Your knife hasn't been used. Grit Bucket is still nearby, chewing on what might have been food. That's lucky. Now you're hungry, really hungry. Time for breakfast. You rummage in your saddlebags, pull out a can of beans, and realize you've eaten beans for 3 days straight. Today, you'll eat beans. Tomorrow, you'll eat beans. There's no escaping them. In the Wild West, beans are both food and sentence. You hold them over a small fire. The flame flickers as if it knows better. The beans don't bubble. They sizzle. You eat them with a piece of bread that's so dry it could scratch glass. Its texture is somewhere between sandstone and shame. Then you chew, and chew, and chew some more. Finally, The bread gives up, or your teeth. You take a sip of coffee. Still bad. Somehow worse than yesterday. You wonder if it's the same water you used to wash your socks. Maybe. No one checks. Then you drive into town and see a sign outside a restaurant, a shack with 2 chairs and a stove older than democracy. It reads, "Stew served all day. Don't ask what's in it." You weigh your options. Hunger wins. You walk in. The man behind the counter has no apron, no teeth, and only one good eye. He asks, "Bowl or bucket?" You blink, "Bowl." He nods, coward. He ladles something thick into a tin dish. It steams, it's hot, it smells, indistinct. You ask, "What's in it?" He stares. That's not what stew is. You take a bite, it's warm. That's all you can say. Maybe meat, maybe mushrooms, maybe revenge. Whatever it is, it will fight back. You chew, you survive. Across the table, a woman with a pistol strapped to each thigh slurps rice as if this were her last meal before the war. She looks at you. "Don't eat so fast. It'll make people suspicious." You slow down. Then you notice something floating. You don't ask. To ask is to be weak. You stir it, push it down, and continue eating as you intended. Historians still debate what the people here actually ate. Was it all jerky and beans, spices, vegetables? Nutrition. Some say frontier food is creative, born of scarcity, forged in fire. Others say it's caloric punishment. All agree on one thing: you don't eat for pleasure. You eat to survive. That late dinner is around a campfire with 2 other travelers. One has a pot, one has regrets. They offer you stew. You ask what's in it. They say nothing. You eat it anyway. It tastes like everything you've ever feared cooked up. Then there are the biscuits. Cowboy biscuits. This is misleading because they're not soft, not sweet, and not healthy. They're dry, dense, and can be thrown. You tap a tin cup, it clinks. You bite, it bites back. Someone once said the secret to frontier biscuits is lard, fire, and low expectations. You have 2, maybe 3. You dip it in coffee. It doesn't soften. It absorbs liquid, then becomes heavier. You chew it like you're chewing shame. Then comes jerky, harder than leather, saltier than betrayal, usually made from animals that refuse to give in. Not bad. If you like the last breath of a deer, you gnaw on it like a dog with low standards. Once, you find something called hoe cake. It's not a cake. It's cornmeal mixed with despair and fried on a shovel. Someone tells you it was invented during the war. It still tastes like it. But every now and then, someone gives you a miracle bacon. The meat sizzles. It smells wonderful. You eat it like it's going to disappear, and it might disappear into someone else's pocket. Here, bacon is currency. It's respect. It's proof that you did something right. You enjoy it until your heart protests. Then you drink more coffee, hoping to wash away the regret. For dessert, if you're lucky, you get a hard candy. Sometimes it's sticky, sometimes it's dusty, sometimes it's just a marble that someone painted red. You suck it anyway. You hear about pies, cakes, custards. They exist, somewhere, but probably only in towns with churches, schools, and people who haven't shot anyone this week. Here, sweets are memories, things you talk about like dreams. Once upon a time, I ate a peach, someone says, and the fire goes out. Then there's moonshine. It's not food. It's the way people pretend to eat it. A clear, dangerous, distilled regret. You take a sip and wake up a philosopher, or a criminal, or a married man. It burns, goes down, and comes up again. You try it once. Grit bucket licks your shoes in disapproval. You apologize to both. By the end of the week, your diet is beans, regret, and things boiled until they stop moving. You haven't tasted freshness since the train west. You've never seen a vegetable that didn't fight back. And yet, you feel stronger. Not because you're fed, but because your stomach has stopped complaining. That's progress. Sans, ambates. You remember a man you met earlier? He called himself Cookie. He said he cooked for ranch hands, criminals, and congressmen. Here, the food doesn't have to taste good, he told you. It just doesn't have to kill you. You take another bite of the stew. There's something crunchy about it. You don't ask. You're learning. You're halfway through a card game with a man named Whiskey Jim when it finally hits you. No one in this town has a real name. No one is called Tom or Margaret. Everyone has an alias. A strange nickname that sounds like it came from a trial, an injury, or a strange night. And that should worry you. Whiskey Jim doesn't drink whiskey. In fact, he says he's allergic to it, but he once traded a whiskey wagon for a horse named Marzipan, and the name stuck. He deals you a queen of spades and smiles with exactly 3 teeth. You ever meet a lucky, he says, don't trust them. You trust him. In the Wild West, nicknames are red flags. They're masks sewn together from misdeeds. A man named Doc is not usually a doctor. He's a guy who's had his leg stitched up and decided it was worth something. A guy named Preacher has probably been banned from 5 churches and carries more knives than Bibles. And Slim is always the most dangerous guy in the room. Not because he's tall or skinny, but because he doesn't need to talk. Slim just stares. Then it's gone. You meet Dusty Bill, a man who hasn't bathed since the war and smells like the inside of a coffin. He offers you a deal trade your saddlebags for a golden map. You refuse. 2 hours later, he's arrested for selling identical maps to 4 people. All of them lead to the same bathroom. Then it's Cactus Jane's turn. She's polite. She smiles genuinely. She has a scar on her cheek that she says she got from arguing with a rattlesnake. You don't ask any more questions. She buys you a drink. You refuse. A wise move. That night, you hear someone screaming in the alley. You look out. It's a man named Boot Knife Carl, punching a shadow. He's drunk, angry, and barefoot. Legend has it that his nickname came from his habit of hiding knives in his shoes. But since losing a toe in a bar fight, he's sworn off wearing shoes. He still carries a knife, though. Historians debate the use of nicknames in the Old West. Were they practical, helping people keep track of each other in a land of chaos? Or were they just smokescreens used to escape the law, start a new life, and pretend that past sins weren't just following you around like a second shadow? You lean toward the second shadow. You approach the blacksmith. He's a big man with hands like anvils. You ask him his name. He says, "They call me Thunder." You ask why? He says nothing. Just hammers an iron bar until it glows like fury. You leave him alone. Even Gritbucket doesn't trust these people. He stays away from Mustache Pete. Pete's mustache is legendary in itself, rumored to have a personality of its own. Once, it caught fire during a poker game and Pete didn't blink. He just blew it out and kept raising the stakes. You try giving yourself a nickname, just to see. At a bar, you say, "Call me Red." A woman across the room laughs. You're not red, you're beige. That's it. From then on, you're beige. Everyone calls you that. It sticks. It burns. Lesson learned. You don't choose your nickname. It chooses you, based on your worst moment, your worst hat, or something you'll never forget. You hear about a man named Snakebite? Sounds scary? Until someone tells you he got that name because he cried for 2 hours after stepping on a garter snake. Now, he overcompensates by carrying 6 pistols and no sleeves. At a campfire, someone tells the story of Silent Joe. Never spoke, never smiled. One day, a man tried to rob him. Joe didn't pull his gun, didn't flinch, just stared. The robber dropped the gun and ran out of town. Joe was never seen again. You ask if he's real. Of course not, someone says. But the point is, if he were real, he'd still be scarier than you. You nod. You've stopped arguing with campfire logic. The longer you're here, the more you realize nicknames are armor. Here. No one wants to know your past. They want to know who you are right now and whether they should trust you. A good nickname says, "Here's my story." A bad nickname says, "Here's a warning label." You try not to get attached to anyone, because no one with a nickname lasts long. They get shot, get rich, get hunted, or get tired. No one retires peacefully with a name like Buckshot Franklin. You start to notice the people without nicknames. The quiet ones, the ones who walk around town, buy supplies, and then disappear. No story, no reputation, no trace of chaos. You begin to envy them. One night, in a tavern, Mary Three-Tooth wins a poker game with a scare so bold that the room falls silent. She collects the coins, nods, and says, "Names don't matter. We all die." She walks out, no one follows. You sit quietly, drink slowly, watch the fire crackle. You are beige now. You didn't want it, but maybe that's the point. You've become a part of this place, marked by food, by fear, by friends you don't quite trust. Don't call yourself lucky. That's how they know you're not. Now you've learned a few things. How to drive without falling off, how to sleep with one eye open, how to chew beans properly. But there's one skill that's more valuable than all the rest, and it comes with no badge, no lessons, no ceremony. It's knowing when to leave, quietly. You're in a town called Tarnation Flats, which, honestly, should have been your first clue. The tavern smells of damp wood and regret. A man in the corner is tuning his banjo with a dagger, and the piano player has been tapping the same 2 keys for the past 20 minutes, like he's daring the universe to get bored. You sit at the bar, eyeing your drink, trying not to look like a target, and then it happens. A man across the room looks up. He stares at you. You look back. You've never seen him before, or so you think, but he has that look, the look people get when they almost recognize you. It starts with a squint, then a slow tilt of the head, then the last thing anyone wants to hear, "Hey, do I know you?" Time stops. You consider your options: deny, run, fake a heart attack. You choose none of those options. You simply get up and leave. No sudden movements, no explanations. You're not rude. You're busy. That's the look in your eyes. Urgent, preoccupied, important stuff involving horses, hats, or your deeply personal relationship with the moon. You walk out. You don't run. You walk like a man who always leaves halfway. Outside, the wind greets you like an accomplice. Gritbucket is awake, restless. It feels it too. You mount silently, swing a leg over your head, and point it east. Behind you, the town shrinks, the lights dim, and someone might ask, "Where did Beige go?" And just like that, you're gone. No goodbyes, no footprints, just an empty seat and a cold drink. There are signs out there, you just have to see them. The piano stops mid-song. The bartender polishes one spot too long. A stranger walks in, revealing both hands. A preacher sweats during his sermon. A woman closes her shutters at noon. Each has a meaning. Each says, "Don't sleep here, don't talk here, don't stay." Then you meet a man named No Fair Nate. He tells you that he once stayed 2 hours too long in a town called Gristle. He was caught in the middle of a gunfight between 2 cousins over a pig. The pig survived. Nate couldn't walk properly for months. His advice: if the air tastes like secrets, just move on. Follow that rule. Sometimes it's a bounty hunter who asks too many questions. Sometimes it's a kid calling your name with overconfidence. Other times, it's a dog growling at your boots. Whatever it is, listen, because out here, no one tells you to leave. They hint. They hint. They glance at the shotgun leaning against the door. Historians debate whether the Wild West had an unwritten rule about leaving. Some say it was a rule: pick up your hat, pay your bills, leave no trace. Others say people left in a flash, with a gunshot, or just out of nowhere. And maybe it was all the same. You learn to pack light. Saddlebags, water bottle, extra shirt, a handful of coins. You never unpack everything. Never hang up your coat. Never tell the same person your real name twice. And you never let your horse get comfortable. Because comfort is the cousin of trouble. You ride through ghost towns where the wind remembers more than the people. You pass burned out signs with names no one remembers anymore. You see bullet holes in doors and unmarked graves. Every sign tells a story of someone who stayed too long. One evening, you come to a town that feels okay, the kind of okay that makes you suspicious. No one screams, no one jumps. Children play in the streets. A man offers you cornflakes. You smile, thank him. Then you hear it, a harmonica. Playing a tune you know, from where you left weeks ago. You freeze. You don't turn around. You return the cornflakes, climb into the grit bucket, and drive off with the quiet panic of someone who has just remembered someone's name. You don't stop in 3 towns. Then you make it a habit if you feel recognized. You're too late. You pass a sign nailed to a tree. If you're out, keep going. If you stay too long, you're buried. It's not poetic, it's practical. So that's your life now. In before the questions, out before the stories. Sometimes, someone calls your name, you don't answer. Sometimes, someone offers you a drink, you smile, nod, and disappear. You become a whisper, a flutter, a rumor with boots. People say, "What happened to that beige guy?" No one knows. And that's exactly how you survive. You never intended to be a legend. You just wanted to survive a few weeks without losing a limb, a horse, or a lung. But the Wild West doesn't care what you want. It takes what you love, spits in your coffee, and sometimes, if you're lucky, lets you ride for another day. But now people are talking. In a dusty saloon 2 towns over, Someone asks if you're the one who knocked out Big Hank with a stare. You're not. Hank tripped over a dog and hit his head on a spittoon. In a barbershop outside Elmore Pass, a kid swears you're Beige, the silent bullet. You're not even sure what that means. But the name sticks. People look at you now with a mixture of respect and concern. And that's a problem. Because in the West, being a legend is the most dangerous thing. Legends get noticed. Those who get noticed get watched. And those who watch, well, you've seen enough pine boxes to know how that story ends. You try to shake off the reputation, you grow a beard, you shave your head, you wear a ridiculous hat. You throw the hat away. You tell people your name is Claude. No one believes you. The more you try to disappear, the more the stories spread. They say you never miss a shot. You miss all the time. They say you kill with a whisper. You get laryngitis. They say your horse was born in a lightning storm. Gritbucket once stepped on a loose wire. You ride into a town called Dead Man's Folly. The sheriff waves you through. "We've heard of you," he says, nodding as if he's debating whether to offer you a drink or an arrest warrant. You smile, politely, and you ride on. The irony is cruel. You survived by being nobody, and now everyone wants to know you. One night, you're sitting around the fire with two vagabonds, one named Crowbait, the other just Mick. They talk about the old days. Mick says, "You know what kills a man faster than a bad draw, fame?" Crowbait nods. "Yeah, we're trying to be the fastest. It's a short job and there's no pension." You're silent. They look at you as if waiting for advice. You just sip your bitter coffee and pretend you didn't hear anything. Because you saw it happen. There was Razor Tag. Fast, loud, and proud. Always causing a ruckus. Telling stories of duels he never fought in, women he never loved, towns he never burned. Now he was just a picture hanging on the wall of a saloon, shot in the back by someone who wanted to take his title. There was Maria, the Belle Vasquez. Her laugh echoed through the canyons. Her rage made the room clear. She wore a red scarf that made her easy to spot. One night, someone found her first. They said she died smiling. They said a lot of things. Then there was Johnny Quiet. You only met him once. Didn't say much. Didn't shoot much. He just slipped away before the saloon door closed. Some say he's still out there, wandering where no map leads. Others say he's just a story people tell themselves to make it easier to disappear. You want to be like Johnny? You want to fade away? But stories won't let you. You come to a crossroads, literally. 4 dusty trails lead to places with names like Hope's Fall, Devil's Wash, and something ominous scratched into the sign. Gritbucket stops. He knows. This is your moment. Do you lean into the legend? Let people call you the Beige Whisper? Start wearing spikes and only speaking proverbs? Or do you disappear? Leave your hat on the fence post. Ride into the hills. Let the next traveler tell your story so badly it becomes someone else's. You choose silence. You turn off the main trail into nowhere, into the horizon that doesn't care who you are. Because the truth is, surviving here isn't about being feared or known. It's about knowing when to stop playing. You ride until the wind stops whispering your name. And somewhere out there, in a smoky, deceitful tavern, someone says, "I heard Beige died in a gunfight." Someone else says, "No, I heard he settled in a haunted canyon." Someone else says, "Beige never existed, just a story to keep children quiet." You smile, because it's the perfect ending. And now, as your journey fades behind the saddle, let your mind drift, as light as the dust that settles on a quiet trail. The sun has set over the plains, the campfires are crackling, and the night stretches safely. Gritbucket stands guard, steady and silent, as the stars twinkle vividly above. You are warm in your blankets, the ground beneath you solid but familiar. You are not beige, not a myth, not a whisper. You are just a spirit, breathing softly under the open sky. Let go of the road, let go of the dust, let your muscles soften. Your thoughts grow slow and kind. No one is chasing you now. No one is calling your name. You are home. Sleep well. Hey everyone, tonight we're headed to a cold, muddy, screaming place. Picture this, you're trudging through a medieval village in the drizzle, hood pulled low to keep out the wind, and something deep in your jaw starts throbbing slowly, dully, relentlessly. It's not just a toothache, it's a medieval death sentence in disguise. You're about to go through one of the worst experiences a medieval person could endure. And spoiler alert, you probably won't survive. At least not with your teeth. So before you get all cozy, Take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually like what I do here. And hey, comment below with your local time and where you're listening. I'd love to know when and where you're listening. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for a gentle hum, and let's enjoy the evening ride together. You wake up with a slight buzzing pain in the corner of your mouth. You try to ignore it. After all, you have more pressing concerns feeding the pigs, praying you don't catch the plague, and dodging the Lord's tax collector. But by mid-morning, the pain has spread to your cheekbones, behind your eyes, and settled somewhere in your brain. It's the kind of pain that makes your whole face tense, like tying your shoelaces too tight. You poke your cheek and instantly regret it. Your gums are swollen and burning. The tooth itself is loose, wiggling, as if it were about to jump ship. You take a cold breath and it slams into your jaw like a bolt of lightning. You try to chew on the other side, but even that makes you wince. Still, you say nothing. Why should you? Toothaches are just one of life's curses, like May rain or the neighbor's goose. Everyone gets them. Everyone survives, more or less. Except sometimes they don't. By noon, you're distracted, irritable. The pain is throbbing. You mumble a prayer to Saint Apollonia, the goddess of toothaches. You don't know much about her, only that she was tortured to death, and that somehow makes her the savior of toothaches. It's creepy and fitting. Your teeth feel tortured. Your mother notices you clenching your jaw and offers a wise suggestion. Bite off some cloves. You don't have cloves. All you have is old beer, stale bread, and the twig you use to scrape your teeth once a week. You chew it half-heartedly, hoping the friction will ease the pain, but it doesn't. And don't even mention your diet. You've been munching on bread that's essentially ground stone, thanks to the grit left over from the mill. That crunchy is slowly grinding your molars into prehistoric pebbles. And meat, of course you'll have meat, salted for 6 months and tougher than the heel of your shoe. No wonder your mouth feels like a battlefield. At the market, you overhear a neighbor's story last week. A woman in the next village had a cavity that went straight into her jawbone. They say she went crazy before she died, clawing at her face and screaming until she lost her voice. A demon, some whisper. Others say it's punishment for gossiping. You tell yourself you're not so bad, but when you go to bed that night, you dream that your teeth are cracking like nuts, and something is writhing out. The next day, the pain is worse. You try to speak, but the words come out choked, as if your mouth is full of wool. Your friends joke about it. Is there a frog in there? But you don't laugh. You don't even smile. You're afraid that if you open your mouth too wide, something might fall out. You spend the day in silence, head down working, one hand pressed to your jaw as if it's the only thing keeping your skull from exploding. You haven't eaten since yesterday. Even drinking water hurts. Now you're torn between your options. You can go to the village priest for a blessing, or go to the old woman who lives near the woods, who smells musty and collects teeth in a jar. Your cousin suggests drinking hot wine and letting the steam draw out the poison. You'll try anything except what happened to the woman who died screaming. You don't want to end up like her. The village healer, who is pretty much the only one who hasn't died, gives you a poultice made from crushed garlic, moss, and a little holy water. You press it to your jaw and hope. It hurts, and it smells like regret. At night, you lie awake, holding your face. The room is dark and cold. The wind howls outside, mocking you. You try to remember what it was like when your teeth didn't hurt, but you can't. You wonder if you'll ever feel normal again, if this is your life now. Historians still debate how common fatal tooth infections were in the Middle Ages. Some say they were rare. Most people died of other causes first. Others point to mass graves full of decayed teeth, suggesting that toothache was a lifelong companion, right up until the very end. You don't care what historians say. Right now, you're living in a nightmare, and it's right behind your left front teeth. And the worst part, this is just the beginning. You wake up with your hand still pressed to your jaw, as if you'd been trying to force your face shut the night before. The pillow beneath you, not really a pillow. More like a folded burlap sack, smells faintly of mildew and sheep. There's a wet circle where you drooled through your clenched teeth. The pain has settled into something persistent, like the heartbeat of a very small, very angry blacksmith pounding against your gums. You spit on the floor and squint. There's no blood, but there's a sticky yellow streak that doesn't bode well. You press your tongue to your teeth. Big mistake. The entire left side of your mouth burns like someone just poured boiling wine over your skull. You need help, or divine intervention, or both. But here's the thing. You live in a world where dental hygiene is completely non-existent. not a habit, not an idea, not even a joke. No one knows what a dentist is. The phrase dental care sounds like magic if someone says it out loud. Your mouth is just another hole in your head, a hole that exists mainly for eating and yelling at your neighbors for stealing your firewood again. If something goes wrong there, good luck. Let's take a look at what counts as dental care in this century. Toothbrush. Nope, you can chew on the end of a twig if you like, but usually you just scrub your teeth with a thin cloth, if you remember. Toothpaste. Maybe a mixture of activated charcoal, bone chips, or burnt bread. Some people use salt, some people use ash, some people use nothing at all and hope for the best. Mouthwash. Sure, if you count rinsing your mouth with vinegar or beer, or, in extreme cases, fermented urine, you really don't want to know whose. Dental floss. The word hadn't even been invented yet. You picked your teeth with whatever was handy, the end of a knife, a chicken bone, a scrap from a dinner plate. You didn't brush twice a day. You didn't brush at all. Unless you were a noble with access to imported herbs and spices, and even then, you just crushed seashells on your teeth with a stick and called it a luxury. Your teeth took care of themselves. And then there was the matter of bread. You'd been eating the same hard, rocky bread since you were a kid. The mill ground it into powder, and those grits didn't disappear immediately. They lodged between your molars, slowly wearing away at your enamel like sandpaper. You'd basically spent your whole life chewing sand, and now your teeth were ready to rebel. Then there's the meat, salted, sun-dried, maybe a little green around the edges. You chew, 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 until your jaw aches and your gums tear. No one worries about eating against the grain. You just gnaw, swallow, and pray it doesn't come back up. Vegetables, when you have them, are usually boiled beyond recognition, but they rarely help. In fact, most people believe that eating too many raw greens will upset your hormonal balance and cause worms, so they stay away from them. Fiber. Why bother with that when you've got relics and self-denial? Oh, and sugar rare, expensive, and surprisingly not the main culprit. It was still a luxury imported from distant lands, and most peasants had never tasted it. Ironically, this meant that the rich, those who could afford candied fruit and honeyed wine, were more likely to have poor teeth than the poor. The more money, the more cavities. But cavities don't discriminate. They creep in all the way. You think of the man in the next village. He was young, maybe 25, healthy, worked with the oxen. One day his cheeks swelled up like an overripe apple. They say he died mumbling nonsense, scratching his face. The priest insisted it was demonic possession. The old midwife said it was demonic possession, but your uncle whispered something else, cavities, said it had gotten into his brain. You didn't believe him then. You do now. By midday, you can barely think straight. The pain is like a blanket, heavy and suffocating. You try to chew the soft bread. You try to dip it in the broth. Every bite sends electric sparks through your head. You're completely silent. When someone asks what's wrong, you just grunt and shake your head. They nod in understanding, as if to say, "Ah, yes, the silent pain of a cursed molar. We've all been there." They haven't, not like this. You wonder, could this have been prevented? Could you have done anything differently? Maybe if you'd chewed fewer bones. Maybe if you hadn't borrowed that toothpaste from the tanner's wife. Maybe if you hadn't sucked on sage leaves like your grandfather did, or avoided kissing that girl with the crooked smile at the midsummer fair. Historians still debate whether medieval people really understood what caused tooth decay. Some say they believed it was rotting food stuck in their mouths. Others blame the devil. Still others think it was toothworms, little creatures that burrow into your enamel and eat your nerves. Some even claim to have seen them. Whatever the cause, the result is the same. Your face is hot. Your breath smells like boiled onions left out in the rain. And if the infection spreads to your brain, you'll probably die before you can figure out who stole your firewood last night. And worst of all, no one can help you yet. But they'll try anyway. The pain has changed. It's no longer just a throbbing, it's pulsing in its own rhythm, like a second heartbeat inside your skull. Every time it flares, your vision goes white at the edges. You start drooling uncontrollably. Your breath smells like something crawled into your mouth and you've forgotten how to die. You haven't slept in 2 nights. You've tried lying on your side, holding your head in your hands, pressing hot towels to your cheeks, then cold towels, then hot towels again. Nothing works. You're starting to understand why people lose their minds over this. Your gums are so swollen that it hurts to close your mouth. You start breathing through your nose like a rabid wild boar. Talking is impossible. Eating is a memory. And in a desperate moment of honesty, you admit to yourself that you're afraid, really afraid that this will kill you. The town priest tells you to repent. Pain is a test, he said. Pain purifies the soul. You don't feel purged. You feel infected. The swelling is obvious. Now your cheek is swollen like a lopsided watermelon. You press lightly on it and feel something being crushed. It's the worst feeling you've ever experienced. Something is festering inside and trying to get out. Your aunt suggests holding a red-hot iron near your face to suck the poison out. You politely decline. She tells you about a neighbor who did just that. He just screamed a little, she adds kindly. People talk about tooth demons, little spirits that crawl into your mouth at night and tap your teeth until you confess your sins. You would laugh if you weren't trying to hold back tears. No one says the word infection. That word doesn't exist yet. But there it was, an abscess, a pocket of pus trapped under the gum, spreading. You could feel it. You could feel it in your ears, your eye sockets, your throat. It was more than a toothache. It was a full-blown siege, and your teeth were the battlefield. And you knew deep down that you were losing. Finally, you stumbled to the village healer. She wasn't a doctor. No one was. She was a woman who knew herbs and animals, and had outlived 3 husbands. She looked you in the face and nodded gravely. "It wants out," she murmured. You sat on a stool while she poked your gums with a quill. Pain. Pain all over. She lit a stick of incense, lit a sprig of rosemary, and began chanting in Latin, Old Saxon, and guesswork. Then she gives you a remedy: crushed wormwood, crushed garlic, and a drop of your own blood, mixed with holy water and applied to your temples. "To ease the pain," she says. You nod. At this point, you'll let her smear shit all over your face if she thinks it'll help. You ask her, pointing and grunting, if she can pull that tooth. She looks at you fondly. "No," she says, "I'm just helping people wait." You leave her hut with a bag of herbs and a vague feeling that your skull is about to split in 2. A boy on the street stares at your swollen face. You hiss at him. He runs away screaming. You don't even feel bad. That night, you can't lie down. The pressure in your head is too great. You sit hunched over, swaying slightly, groaning through clenched teeth. The pain is constant. Yes, but every few minutes it builds to something indescribable, like being stabbed from the inside with a red-hot awl. You wonder how much longer you can take it. Historians debate how often people in the Middle Ages actually suffered from tooth abscesses. Some say shorter lifespans and less sweets meant cavities weren't as common. Others point to archaeological evidence: skulls with worn molars, missing teeth, and signs of osteomyelitis, a bone infection that can result from an untreated abscess. In short, yeah, it happened, frequently. And when it did, there were only 3 possible outcomes. The infection cleared up on its own. You survived with only a tooth and maybe a scar. Someone can pull the tooth out. Painful, bloody, but it can save your life. Or the infection spreads into the blood, into the brain, and then you die. You are now torn between options 2 and 3, and your eyes are so swollen that you can't close them. Your jaw can only open about an inch. You no longer want to eat. You can't swallow without wincing. You try to cry, but even crying hurts. Crying. Then someone, maybe your mother, or the priest, or the village elder, says what everyone else is thinking. "We need to pull that tooth." No one says how, or who, or whether you'll survive, but everyone agrees. It's time. The words hang in the air like thunderclouds. We need to pull that tooth. You nod, or rather, you jerk your head, which is what you might call a nod. It's hard to tell, because your neck is stiff, your jaw is rigid, and your face is shaking like a funeral drum. But the message is clear. You're ready. You'll do anything to stop this. Almost anything. Because first, they'll try some alternatives. Your mother starts boiling something on the stove. The smell hits you before you can see it: garlic, moldy rosemary, and a sourness you recognize immediately: vinegar. She drops in a few crushed cloves and stirs in what looks like a twig from a pig pen. You're handed a steaming wooden cup and told to stir. You try to take a small sip before your mouth goes numb with pain. The mixture runs down your chin. Someone taps you on the shoulder and says, "That worked." It doesn't. Next, an old woman down the street comes with what she calls blessed moss, wrapped in linen. She presses it against your cheek and mumbles an incantation. Then she presses harder. You cry out. She nods. Ah, it's eaten away. No kidding. They try the poultices. First hot, then cold, then both at once. A boy brings a jar of fermented honey from the market. "Put it on your tooth," someone says. It'll suck out the germs. You do, sticky and desperate, hoping it will numb the pain. It does, however, attract flies. You wave them away with one hand while the other grips your jaw like a drowning man clutching a rope. Then comes the salt water gargling, basically the torture of the sea in a cup. You think you taste blood, but maybe it's just your tongue giving in. And the worst part, urine? Yes, a cousin arrives, swearing by a local healer's recipe warm, overnight cow urine mixed with mint and a dash of lemon. You sniff the cup, you refuse. He shrugs, suit yourself, save my brother's life. You think again, you swallow, you gag, you sob. Nothing changes. Even the good remedies hurt. Chewing fennel root numbs your tongue but does nothing for your teeth. Putting a hot stone to your face only makes you dizzy. Biting on a piece of leather, your mother's old shoelace, keeps you from breaking your tooth, but also makes you feel like a goat. Desperate times call for desperate hallucinations. At some point, you're almost certain the pain starts talking to you. A tiny voice. It whispers, "I live here now." You believe it. Historians note that many medieval remedies were both medical and magical. Cures often involved a combination of herbs, folk wisdom, and whatever was rotting in someone's kitchen cupboard. Common toothache treatments included chewing on belladonna root, mildly poisonous, gargling with arsenic water, very poisonous, or writing prayers on small scrolls and wearing them on a string around your neck, less poisonous, but not as effective. In Germany, it's customary to heat a nail until it's red hot and hammer it into a piece of wood, supposedly to transfer pain from your body to a tree. In France, people whisper spells over a pot of boiling milk. In some villages, it's said that a baby born on Sunday can blow away pain. None of them live in your town. You try one last thing, the onion test. Someone suggests cutting a raw onion in half, rubbing it with ash, and tying it to your cheek overnight. You wake up smelling like roast pig and somehow feeling worse. It's time to face the facts. The pain isn't going away. Poultices haven't worked. Prayers have failed. You've been officially defeated by the culinary equivalent of a devil's salad bar. Your friends and family have gathered. There was a moment of silence, broken only by the gasp of air through your nose and the slow drip of drool from your lips. Then the neighbor, a big guy with ham hands and a nose that had been broken more times than you had birthdays, stepped forward. "I'll carry them," he said. "Who?" "Oh, right. You? Because you're not going to sit through this." Not when the next step is something they've all been avoiding. Not when all the remedies are gone and all the witchcraft has failed. Not when there's only one option left. Your tooth needs to be pulled. And that means it's time to go to the only person in town with the tools to do it. Not the doctor, not the witch doctor. The barber. You're out of luck. The barber shop wasn't really a shop. It was in a corner of the market square, between a fishmonger and a stall selling eels from some strange, non-local stream. The barber himself was already working, his apron stiff with old blood and what looked like haircut from a dozen different species. You shuffled toward him, flanked by two relatives and a ham-limbed neighbor who looked too excited to be about to restrain a screaming man. The barber saw you and squinted. "Teeth?" he asked, wiping something metal on his apron. You nodded slowly, as if your head weighed twice as much as it should. He pointed to a rickety stool under a tattered awning. It was sticky. You tried not to ask why. A fly buzzes around your head as if it senses something special about you. Maybe it smells victory. You sit down. A crowd gathers almost immediately. A few kids, a goat, a man munching on a turnip. They all stare, half curious, half amused. This is better than going to church. The barber rummages through a leather tool roll and pulls out something between a pair of pliers and a gun. It's iron, rusty, and probably older than you. It looks like it could pull a horseshoe. You gasp for a no, but it ends up being a no. He grunts, left or right. You point to your jaw. He doesn't wait. He simply bends down, holds your head in one hand, lifts your lips with the other, and looks into your mouth. It's swollen. It's about to burst. Lucky. You don't feel lucky. He holds up the pliers like they're the Holy Grail. It'll only take a second. He lies. A boy hands you a piece of leather to bite. Another hands you a cup of wine, tasteless, watery, and barely enough. You drink both. You pray to every saint you can remember, including a few who probably aren't saints at all. You'd pray to the goat if it meant mercy. The barber steps closer. His breath smells of onions and regret. He presses the cold metal to your teeth. Then he sits and starts to squirm. Not immediately. Not quickly, not even steadily. He wriggles, he jerks, he curses. You howl. The crowd leans in, watching. Pain shoots across your face like sparks. Your back arches, your hand gropes, your neighbor hugs you tighter. You bite through the leather and scream into the square. Somewhere, a child cries, a dog runs away. Someone says, "Oh, that sounds bad." Historians still debate how widespread the use of barber surgeons was across medieval Europe. Some argue that they were the backbone of peasant medicine multitaskers who stitched wounds, bled patients, pulled teeth, and occasionally cut hair. Others argue that their brutal reputation is exaggerated, that they provided a necessary if messy service in a world without formal medical licenses. Either way, it's not going to be easy. The barber stops, wipes his forehead, and tries again. This time, there's a wet pop and a warm puff of air down your chin. He holds the tooth up like a trophy. The crowd applauds. You fall forward, half-conscious, blood pouring from your mouth. Someone hands you a rag, another hands you a small onion as a reward. You don't know whether to be grateful or offended. The barber examines the tooth's root. Still intact, he says, satisfied. Not bad for a Tuesday. You try to thank him, but your mouth won't close. You make a sound like a wounded duck. The neighbor pats you on the back. See, not so bad. You want to punch him, but your hand is as stiff as boiled noodles. Later, as you lie on the straw mat in your house, staring at the ceiling and tasting blood, someone places a bowl of broth next to you. You can't eat it yet, but the scent is strangely pleasant. You've survived. Maybe. You run your tongue over the space where your tooth used to be. It's soft, rough, and strangely empty, as if something important is missing. You realize your nightmare isn't over yet, because this is the Middle Ages. And now you have an open wound in your mouth, and nothing is clean. In the morning, your mouth tastes like a battlefield. There's blood, yes, but worse. Sour and sticky and stale, like the dregs of a barrel of wine that hasn't been cleaned in years. You slowly sit up, your head spins, your jaw cracks, your pillow, as it were, is crusted with dried saliva and maybe a little pus. You pull yourself up and try to rinse your mouth with water. It stings. It stings so much that you have to lean against the wall to keep from sinking. You realize you're not dead. Not yet. But you're starting to wonder if you like it. The wound where your tooth used to be has begun to bleed. You can feel it, even without touching it. It's pounding like a second heartbeat. Your cheek is still swollen, maybe even more swollen than before, and hot to the touch. Not good. You know a fever when it comes. You've seen people die from a bad scrape, a broken foot, a rusty knife cut. Infection is public enemy number one, and now it's in your head. Someone offers more help, you decline. No more red-hot irons, no more moss swabs, no more fermenting things. It's too late for comfort. You need something real. And so, against all common sense, you do something reckless, go back to the barber shop. He greets you with a bloody apron and a vague hum. He's shaving an old man with what looks like a recycled butter knife. "Still hurts?" he asks, squinting at your puffy face. You nod once. He frowns. "Did I pull out all the roots?" You try to answer, but all that comes out is a mumble. He thought for a moment. Maybe there's something left. "Come here." This time, you didn't sit on the chair. You leaned against the crate, breathing heavily. He rummaged in his pocket and pulled out a hook-shaped tool, like the kind you'd use to gut a fish. He didn't explain. He just walked toward you with the confidence of someone who'd done this too many times without incident. You steeled yourself. He inserted the hook into the socket, without warning, without gentleness. You nearly fainted. He rummaged around like a dog looking for a buried bone. You could feel every twist, every poke. Your body tried to escape the pain, but it was still inside you, and there was nowhere to run. You clutched at your arms just to keep your balance. Finally, he pulls something out. A splinter. Tiny, jagged. He holds it up triumphantly. There it is. You fall into someone's arms you're not sure whose, and they drag you home. Not carry you. Drag you. You're still conscious, but only by inches. That night, the fever takes over. Your dreams are strange. You see saints made of bone dust. You see the inside of your mouth, cracked and hollow. You float in a sea of molars. Your jaw speaks Latin. You wake up drenched in sweat. Someone wraps a cold towel around your head. Your hands shake. Your mouth tastes like old coins. Historians debate how common barber surgeons were for pulling teeth, or whether most people relied on traveling dentists and pharmacists, but the evidence suggests that barbers were the go-to local for anything sharp, messy, or anatomically relevant. They cut hair, pricked boils, amputated limbs, pulled teeth all in the same workspace, sometimes without even changing instruments. And hygiene, forget it. The hook they just pulled out of your gum probably shaved off a wart on a man's foot an hour ago, if you were lucky. He wiped it off with his apron mid-surgery. Such was the reality of medieval surgery. There was no clean, just not as dirty as usual. You survived the night, barely. Your fever broke just before dawn. Your body ached like it had been trampled by a mule. You take a sip of the broth, ask someone to help you sit up, and silently thank some saint for the miraculous recoveries. Saint Apollonia, maybe. Or maybe you're too stubborn to die from a tooth. Still, you're not out of danger. The socket is still open. The swelling is still visible. And you can't be sure the infection is gone. You wonder how many people have died from this very thing, a tooth, a tiny abscess, and a hook in the wrong hands. You resolve not to take any chances. But you also know this: if it happens again, if another tooth is lost, this is your only option. No dentist, no antiseptic, no anesthetic. Just a man with a hook, a crowd of onlookers, and the faint smell of onions. You survive a week before the swelling subsides. The socket closes in patches, jagged and painful. Your cheeks flatten, your voice returns. And one morning you actually smile without holding your face as if it were about to fall off. But just as you begin to believe you're safe, you cross the village square and see something that chills you even more than the toothache. The traveling tooth extractor has come to town. He stands under the red awning, wrapped in a bright scarf and feathered sleeves, smiling like a man who has never felt pain in his life. A crowd gathers around him, wide-eyed children, mothers with their hands over their mouths, old men with graveyard mouths. The tooth extractor swings his arms dramatically, holding up a pair of shiny iron tongs that look exactly like a barber's, but cleaner and more terrifying. He shouts to the music, something like, "Take away the pain and cure you with one jerk." A woman gasps as he yanks a molar out of a volunteer's mouth, blood dripping onto his red boots. It's impossible to tell if it's real or staged. Maybe both. You're both horrified and amused as he holds up the bloody tooth, and the crowd cheers as if they're watching a jousting match. Next to him, an assistant hands out flyers. Not everyone can read them. The photos are enough happy. Gap-toothed farmers grinning alongside slogans like, "No more devil jaws and pain today, peace tomorrow." And then you see it, his cart. It's decorated like a circus wagon, but inside are the real tools of the trade: long tongs, sharp hooks, twist drills, and wooden mouthpieces stained a suspicious shade of brown. Some of them even had their names engraved on their handles. It was not a pleasant sight. He was not alone. It seemed like every town had one of these performers. Some were genuine, some were con artists, some were both genuine and con artists. They went from village to village, delivering quick, dramatic relief. The tooth pulling was the entertainment. The blood was part of the act. You may recall hearing that in London these performers sometimes worked alongside fire breathers and sword swallowers. They would pull out a tooth mid-show and throw it into the crowd like a wedding bouquet. Anyone who caught it would get free advice. Lucky them. But you also remember the darker stories of people who lost their teeth by mistake, or lost too many, or who wouldn't stop bleeding afterward, about the imposters who used broken teeth, hidden in their sleeves, to convince desperate people to have surgery. You wonder, is this worse than barbers? Hard to say. At least barbers are dirty and honest. This man has talent. He sees you staring and waves you off with a dramatic bow. "You look like someone who needs to be freed," he roars. "Let me wash away your pain with a sharp iron." You shake your head and step back. But another steps forward, a boy of about 15, his face contorted in pain, his jaw clenched. You look at the boy sitting on the stool. The tooth puller raises his forceps as if blessing them. The boy closes his eyes. The crowd leans back. A quick pull. A loud shout. Something red shot out and the boy's foot kicked out, knocking over a basket of onions. The crowd burst into applause. You didn't stop to see what happened next. Historians still debate whether these traveling tooth extractors helped or harmed more people. Some say they were the only medical resource many towns had. Others call them dangerous charlatans who turned medicine into theater. What is clear, their popularity wasn't just about pain relief, it was about hope. Hope that someone, anyone, could end the pain. And people clung to that hope, even when it came with blood, lies, and the risk of something worse than pain. Back home, you lie down and stare at the beams overhead. You run your tongue along the gap where your tooth used to be. It's healed, barely, but the memory is still fresh. You realize something unsettling. You're now the village toothache expert. People start asking you how it feels. What did the barber use? How much did it hurt? Was the mobile tooth extractor as good as he looks? You want to tell them the truth, that it was excruciatingly painful, that it nearly broke you, that no amount of flattery or words can ease the pain, but you also see their faces the worry, the hope, the fear, and you realize they're just like you, waiting for the pain to start, waiting for someone to pull it out. You used to think toothaches were the curse of the poor, but now, lying there, half-healed with a bloody rag pressed to your cheek, you begin to realize something more horrifying. No one in the Middle Ages was immune to monsters in their mouths. Not you, not the blacksmith's wife, and certainly not those in castles with feather beds and imported cinnamon. Because it turns out, the upper classes may have had silks, spices, and chamber pots, but when it came to their teeth, they were just like you, only with more sugar and worse decisions. You heard this first from the priest, mumbling in the middle of a sermon on humility. He told me that King Charles once had to halt his entire coronation feast because of a tooth demon. You think he's joking until the baker tells you about Lady Juliana, the noblewoman who visited the village last winter. Her breath is like fish stew that's been on the fire for 3 days, he says, eyes wide. She covers her mouth with a veil all the time. She says it's the fashion, but I saw her teeth, black as coal. And she's one of the lucky ones. You begin to see a pattern. The traveling poet sings of queens whose beauty has faded not with age, but with the decay behind their lips. The peddler who passes by mutters about a lord who gritted his teeth and spoke, afraid to open his mouth lest his molars fall out mid-sentence. And your neighbor, who once served in a noble kitchen, swears he saw a duke sneeze and lose a tooth during dinner and then go on eating as if nothing had happened. At first you laugh, until you realize perhaps he had to. Because if the aristocracy feared anything more than war or scandal, it was admitting weakness. They did everything they could to hide their pain, and in doing so, often made it worse. Take the matter of sugar. While you may have tasted honey once or twice in your life, spread thinly on a holiday loaf and guarded like a treasure, the aristocracy practically drowned themselves in it. Candied almonds, sugared plums, rose petal jelly, mulled wine with raisins, syrups, jams, cakes, biscuits, and even meats were coated in the sweet stuff until they glistened. For them, it was wealth on a spoon. For their teeth, it was a daily death sentence. You hear the tales in the market, the noblewoman who brushed her teeth with crushed pearls and mint water, believing it would make her breath smell like a garden. Instead, it wore down her enamel so much that her front teeth broke while biting into an apple. And then there was the count who rinsed his mouth with vinegar and wine every morning and whitened his teeth with lead powder every night. A smile to die for. Literally. Of course, no one blamed sugar. No, they blamed the usual suspects: cold air, bad moods, night demons, or that all-too-common menace cavities. That's right. Invisible little creatures were said to crawl into the gums at night and eat away at tooth enamel like termites in a beam. Even the nobility believed it. Some doctors claimed to have pulled them out, little white threads squirming at the end of hooks, most likely bits of nerve or tendon. But who's counting? To get rid of them, the rich turned to treatments that made their own pain seem almost plausible. Hot mouthwashes, sulfur fumes, poultices made from boiled leeches, moldy bread, and pulverized ivory. And when all else failed, there was always tooth extraction. But not in public, under a market tent. No, tooth extraction for royalty was a private horror, hidden behind curtains in candlelit rooms. There were no barbers, no friendly neighbors with greedy hands, only royal physicians, trained more in Latin than in extracting anything from a living human body. Now you can picture the scene: a court physician shivering, sweat dripping down his velvet wrists while a duchess writhed in a silk chair, her maids holding her while he fumbled with polished iron tongs that hadn't been cleaned since the last plague. And when it was all over, when the screaming had stopped, the blood had been wiped away, and the gold molar had been discreetly removed, what would happen? They were covering it up. Literally. Missing teeth. Paint your smile. Apply lipstick. Keep your mouth small and still in portraits. Whisper through lace fans and silk scarves. Smile only when necessary, and even then, be careful. Some nobles went further. They wore dentures carved from wood, ivory, or bone, but those who could afford them paid the most for the most precious substitute real teeth from real people. Sometimes bought, sometimes stolen. Sometimes rumor has it dug up from fresh graves. You shiver, not from the cold, but because for the first time, you understand something terrifying. In this world, even the rich chewed on dentures. Historians still debate how common dentures were in the Middle Ages. Some say they were rare until centuries later. Others believe that the tooth trade was more widespread than anyone would care to admit, especially among the upper classes, who valued appearance above all else. Archaeologists have even found jawbones with uneven molars, filed down to fit. You run your tongue over the gum where your teeth used to be. Now it heals slowly, painfully. No tusks, no bones, just the rough sockets of survival. And strangely enough, you feel proud. Because while royalty sip mead through clenched teeth, afraid to be seen with their crooked smiles, like you've faced the monster. You've screamed in the crowd, you've bled out in the barber's chair, you've bitten off a leather strap and escaped. And your mouth may be missing a soldier, but you're still standing. You've started chewing again slowly, gently, on the right side only. Your mouth still hurts in the morning, and the cold water feels like it's taking a personal revenge on your nerves. But overall, you're healing. The swelling's almost gone, your voice is almost normal, and you've even managed to eat something crunchy, a boiled turnip. Yes, but still, progress. But now that you've survived the fire, survived the pliers, and survived to taste bread again, something strange happens. People come to you with questions. One by one, they knock on your door or find you near the well, looking shifty, as if they're about to ask where babies come from. But instead, they lower their voices and whisper, "Really, can a worm really live in your tooth?" At first, you laugh. Then you realize they're serious. They want to know about the pain, about the fever, about the blood and the screams and the feeling of the barber scratching your face like he's planting a crop. They want to know how long it lasts, if you see visions, if Saint Apollonia comes to you in your dreams. But mostly what? They want to know if it lives inside them. Because deep down, every medieval mouth is a mystery, a ticking time bomb, and no one knows when it will explode. So you start repeating what you've heard all your life, the beliefs, the folklore, the weirdness. Tooth decay, that's the big deal. Everyone's heard of them, the little white, wriggling creatures that burrow into the roots of your teeth and feed on pain. Some people claim you can hear them chewing at night if you put your ear to your pillow. Others swear they saw them wriggling when the pain was at its peak. You remember your cousin pouring hot oil into his mouth, saying it would boil the worm. He lost 2 teeth, maybe his sense of taste, too. Your neighbor once tried tying frog legs to his jaw. "The cold sucks out the evil," he said, even as his face swelled to twice its size and his breath could wilt cabbage. There were even rumors of witches who could summon cavities into their enemies. They called it the curse of the jaw. The village priest said it was divine punishment. Those who lied, gossiped, or broke their fast too early would find their mouths rotting from the inside. He held up the relic of a long-dead monk, his teeth falling out in patches proof, he said, of God's justice. The healer believed in balance. If your teeth hurt, she said, it meant your liver was angry, or maybe your blood was too cold or too hot, depending on the lunar cycle. Historians today still debate whether people actually believed in cavities or whether they were just the best explanation for pain they couldn't see. Some say it was symbolic, a metaphor passed down through the generations. Others say they were downright serious, citing medical texts that describe the creatures in detail. Carved ivory models of teeth even show tiny worms inside, coiled like snakes in pain. You don't know the truth, you just know it feels real. The pain, the illusions, the way the pain seems to move, wiggle, shift under the skin. If someone told you it was alive in there, you'd believe it. You would. And now that you've made it through, people look to you as a prophet. You give the advice you wish someone had told you. Don't chew bones. Rinse your mouth after you eat. Don't let the barber drink first. Never trust a man with whiter teeth than yours. He probably stole them. They listen. They nod. But you can see the fear in their eyes. The same fear you once felt. Because no matter how many herbs you chew, how many prayers you whisper, or how many crosses you brush, you can't stop it. It lives in the village, in the food, in the breath, in the bones. It waits. And someday, it will choose someone else. Maybe the girl with the crooked smile. Maybe the blacksmith who cracked the walnuts with his molars. Maybe the mayor who drinks from a flask and never uses dental floss, whatever that is. No one is safe. Not the peasants. Not the priests. Not the queen. Not even the people who pull teeth. Because eventually, the pain comes to everyone. Sooner or later, you wake up with fire in your jaw and a demon under your tongue. And if you're lucky, you might survive. But even then, you'll never forget. You still find yourself chewing on the side of your missing tooth, mostly out of habit. And every time your tongue brushes over the small, hollow pit in your gum, you feel two things at once. First, relief. You survived. You did it. The pain is gone. Second, fear. Because now you know how bad it can get. The gap in your mouth isn't just a gap. It's a memory. A warning. A small, silent monument to the time when your whole world shrank to a single point of fire behind your eye socket. You walk straighter now. But you still flinch every time you hear someone complain about a toothache. Because the next person, it could be you. No one talks about the aftermath, not really. The loneliness that sets in when the fever goes away. The dull ache in your jaw. The feeling that food will never taste the same again. You still smiled, but carefully, as if your lips feared what they would reveal. A crooked smile, a missing piece, the mark of a survivor. People noticed. They whispered less and asked more. They wanted to know how you did it. How you kept quiet. How you didn't go crazy. How you kept from choking on your own screams. You didn't have an answer. You just knew you didn't, not really. You scratched, you cried, you begged, and eventually you overcame the pain. Others weren't so lucky. There was an old shoemaker who had lost 3 teeth last winter, and most of his appetite had gone with them. The baker's boy had had a tooth pulled out with his bare hands and now spoke as if his tongue was half tied. And just last week, a girl from the next village was buried after her jaw disease spread to her lungs. You hear these stories and realize you're still here. There are no saints, there are no miracles. There's just pain, pressure, restraint, and time. You're not grateful for the suffering, but you are grateful for what it teaches you. You've become the reluctant village expert on pain management. Not everyone calls you an expert. They just say things like, go ask the person with the space, and so you do your best. You tell them to rinse their mouths with warm water. Chew slowly. Avoid chewing on ice, bones, or that mysterious jerky that old man Janik sells wrapped in hay. But mostly, you tell them this. When the pain starts, don't wait. Because that's what you did. You waited. You thought it would go away. You thought you could sleep it off. You thought maybe it was your fault. And in the Middle Ages, a lot of people thought that way. They believed toothache was a punishment, a curse, a test of faith, a tiny crack in the soul, not just the jaw. Historians today still argue about what people really believed about toothache. Was it spiritual, superstitious? Was it sin, worms, cold air in the lungs? You're not sure what the scholars will decide. All you know is that when the pain hits, it doesn't ask you what you believe. It just takes you over. And when it's finally gone, when you're sitting there in the bloody barber's chair, clutching a rag to your face and sobbing on the floor, you don't feel justified, or cleansed, or stronger. You feel empty, still vibrating, and alive. And maybe that's enough. Now, sometimes, when the breeze is gentle and your head is clear and your mouth feels like it's finally yours, you smile. A genuine smile. The kind that stretches across both cheeks even if it's a little lacking on the left side. And you think, I'm over it. Then you turn to the next poor guy with the puffy cheeks and wild eyes, and you pat the stool next to him. Sit down. You say, let me tell you a story. The worst is over. The tooth has fallen out. The fever has passed. The pain has faded into memory. And you, the brave survivor of a nightmare born of bones, can finally rest. You lie on your back on a straw mat or perhaps a warm patch of grass in the sun. The sky above you turns a grayish blue, and the world begins to quiet around you. No more noisy crowds, no more iron tools, no more fire under your cheek. Only the breathing in your chest is steady and slow. Only the gentle curve of your teeth, no longer clenched. Only silence, patient and gentle, waiting to lull you to sleep. Let the muscles of your face relax. Let your hands fall to your sides. Let your thoughts flow freely like loose threads, gently unraveling in the silence. The tooth has fallen out, the pain is gone. And you are safe. You are whole. You are here. So close your eyes and let go. Let the silence hold you. Let your dreams be gentle. Sleep well, my friend. And may your teeth always be silent.